In this video, I'll show you how to set up your local system on your laptop to work with Git and GitLab. So let's first make sure that you have the latest version of the RSM-MSBA Spark Docker container. If that's not the case for you, make sure that you press, after launching the launch script, press 5 and then enter. And you might also want to update the launch script by pressing 6 and enter. Okay. Now I've already started an RStudio session by pressing 2 and enter. So let's go into that and start setting things up. Now the Git software is what manages the tracking of changes in your different projects and repos. And so that's already installed and available in the Docker container. I've set up an account, a new account on GitLab, and I'm going to link my local setting, my local system, to that remote GitLab account. I'm going to do that using add-ins and then Git Gadget. Okay. So the first thing I need to do is introduce myself to Git. Again, the Git software is already available, but it doesn't know about me, doesn't know any of my specifics. And so I'm going to start typing in some of my characteristics, starting with my username. This is my username that I have on GitLab, and my email address. Okay. Now the next thing it asks is for a GitLab token, and I don't have one of those yet. So if I click on Create, it's going to open up a new browser tab where I can create a GitLab token. Then when I have the token, I'm going to go back to Git Gadget and paste in the token here. All right, so let's click on Create. So we can now create a personal access token. I'm just going to call it MSBA. Don't put an expiration date, just leave it open. That way we'll have access for sure the duration of your studies at Rady. Now, if you decide at some point you want to revoke this access through access token, because this is something that we will use, as in the faculty and TAs, to access files on your account. So at some point you might want to cancel that, and you can always just revoke that at any time. So I'm going to set all the different scopes to make sure we have ultimate flexibility, and then click on Create Personal Access Token. Okay. So here it is at the top. Let's copy that, and I'll go back to RStudio and put in the GitLab token in that input box by pasting it. All right. So now that's available. We're setting this up as a student. I want you to use the base directory for all your Git repositories to be ~git. And so that's going to be a directory in your home directory. The tilde is a shortcut to your home directory. /git. That's going to be the directory where all the repos are going to be cloned in the future. And then we're going to go ahead and click Introduce. So this is going to run some commands in the background that's going to introduce you to Git on your local system. All right, there we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on the restart button. That's basically just going to take me out of Git Gadget and back to RStudio. Now, unfortunately, RStudio doesn't currently yet have a command to do a full restart of the R session, and so we'll have to do that manually. So basically, we have to go to Sessions Restart R and click on that. So Sessions Restart R, and now I've restarted the R session. So now if we go back into add-ins and Git Gadget, it should remember the stuff that we typed in before. So, and that seems to be the case. So here's my user name, my user email, the GitLab token I filled in. And now the last thing I need is to set up an SSH key. Now SSH is a secure communications protocol that allows us very securely to communicate between your local system and the remote GitLab server. Okay. So once we click on this, what should happen is that another tab will open where we can put in an SSH token that allows, again, the server and your local system to communicate securely. And at the same time, a new key is going to be created that's going to be shown in Git Gadget. Okay, so let's click on that. It's doing some stuff here on the left, basically creating our secret token. And it's opened up the tab on GitLab. We don't currently have any SSH keys, and so we need to get that from Git Gadget and then paste it in here. So let's go do that. All right. So here is that SSH key. It's very long. I'm just going to triple click on this until I get the whole thing. And you see this is an enormous, you can think of it sort of as a password. I'm going to copy that into the clipboard and then go back to Git Gadget and just paste that into this input box. And once it's there, I'm going to go ahead and click Add Key. And now we've set up basically the communication protocol between our local system and the remote server. So I don't need either of these anymore, so I'm just going to close those tabs for GitLab. All right. Now, the first time we're going to clone a repo, get a repo that we create on GitLab, we're actually going to do that from the terminal. So I'm just going to close out Git Gadget, and I'm actually going to refresh the session just to make sure that everything is set up as properly. So click on Sessions, Restart R again. And I'm going to do one other thing, which is I'm going to get rid of all the stuff that's here in the console. And you can do that by clicking on Control and then L. Right, so now I've got a nice clean console. So let's go to GitLab and create our first repo. So we can click here to create a project, or click on the plus, New Project. So it's going to show us a form where we can create a new project. So let's call it Test 1. We can provide a description if you want. It's going to be a private repo, and that's important because the private repo, of course, needs this secure communication protocol, and so we're going to have that. And let's initialize it with a README file. A README file is useful because it's going to allow us to enter text that can describe to others and to ourselves, if we're looking back at this in the future, what this repo is about. Now, it's not going to be very fancy here, but we're just going to create one and then possibly do some edits with that later on. Okay, so here's our test 1 repo. It was created successfully. There's just one file in it at the moment, readme.md, and you can see there's literally just a little bit of text in there, just test 1. That's it. Okay. Now what we want to do is make a copy of this repo to our local system, and then we can start adding files and doing edits and committing all kinds of stuff. Right? So to do that, we're going to click on the clone button here, and we're going to clone through SSH because we remember we set up that SSH key for communication. So copy that to the clipboard. I'm going to go back to our studio and start up Git Gadget again. Okay. Now, sorry, I wasn't actually going to do this through Git Gadget. I said I was going to do it for the terminal first. So I have a Git directory, so I'm going to cd into that, cd git, and let's see. Okay, so there's nothing in there. Good. So the command I'm going to enter is git, that's the program, with an argument clone. And what is it going to clone? I'm going to paste this in here. That is the URL, if you will, that we just copied from this button in GitLab. Okay. So press enter. And now if all goes well, it should automatically be able to set up, again, that secure communication protocol between the local system and the remote server. So it says permanently added this host, fine. And it has created the directory test1. Great. So here's our README, cat README. You see there's really not a lot in it. It's just test1. Okay. Now this has established that we have indeed been successful setting up that communication protocol. It's not a very useful project folder just yet. And so what I'm actually going to do, I'm just going to go back one, and I'm going to remove with the command rm.rf that test1 directory. And I'm going to clone it again, but this time with Git Gadget. Okay. So again, we've determined now that we've been successful in making that connection between the two setups, and I am going to start Git Gadget again, and it remembers all this information about me. I'm going to go into the clone tab, and it's already saying that, hey, you know what? Whatever you clone, I'm going to put that into the Git directory, which is good. Now I still have in my clipboard, if I'm correct, yes, I still have that same URL in there. So I paste this in here, and now I'm going to click on clone, and now it should work directly from Git Gadget as well. Actually, it does a couple of things for us. It checks whether there's some files in the repo that we have on GitLab, and if not, it might add specific files that it needs. So just say yes. This is going to, I don't need to save the password. This is going to open up as an RStudio project, the repo that we created called test1. Now initially it only had the readme.md file in it, right? That's the one that we already looked at. It just has test1 in it. And because it didn't see the following, didn't see a git ignore file, it added that. And it also added this test1 rproj file. Now that is one where if you're not already in a project, let's see, what about if I just close that? We'll just close the project. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to Git test 1. If I click on test 1, it's going to restart RStudio and open up as a project test 1. So that'll happen automatically when we were doing this through Git Gadget. All right. Now, I've successfully cloned. So again, the communication protocol is set up. Let's just see if I can actually make a change. So my first Git repo pushed to GitLab. All right. Now I can see here in the tab that the changes I just typed in, that they haven't been saved yet. So go ahead and click on save. And now we can see that the change has been saved. There should also be a Git tab now available. So let's click on that. And we'll see that these are files that are available in the test1 repo. Okay? Now these are new. And so we need to click on the checkbox here. And it says we're going to add that file that's going to start being tracked by Git. And also the test.rproj file that is not currently being tracked. So let's add that as well by staging it. And let's also accept the changes to the README file. Okay. Now click on the commit button here. All of these three are staged, and I can see what I changed. So this is kind of nice. I can see what I changed to this file relative to the original form of the repo. Okay. Now what I need next is to put in a commit message. So my first commit. Okay, so then I hit commit. And now what it's done is it's taken a snapshot of the changes that we've made to the project onto our local system. Now at this point, there's no changes on GitLab just yet. And you can actually see that our current local branch is ahead of what we have on the server. Okay? So to get the stuff that we've changed locally to be available on the remote server, we need to hit this push button. So if I don't see any warnings or messages, that's all good. I can just click close and close the commit window. And now let's go take a look at GitLab to see if our changes actually ended up there. Now, if I just scroll down, it doesn't look like anything's changed, but I have to hit refresh in my browser first before I see the changes, and there we go. The change we made locally is now actually also available remotely on GitLab. Okay, so that was the first part of things that I wanted to show you. We'll discuss more about how we can expand on this later on.